Not long ago, I had to go to a meeting for my job, and that meeting was about an hour and a half away from where I live. Now, that posed a particular problem for me at the time because I was having some issues with my cell phone battery. I normally have about a 20-minute commute from the place where I live to the place where I work, and in that 20-minute commute, I normally would go from about 100% cell phone battery to about 60 or 65%. And I have two young children who are both in elementary school, and I always worry, what if my cell phone battery is dead and something has happened, the school needs to get a hold of me, I need to try to keep some of my battery in the tank. Or my wife is a home health nurse, and I always worry, what if she's had an accident, what if she has some vehicle trouble and she cannot get a hold of me, I need to save some of my cell phone battery in the tank. And so I've got this hour and a half commute there, and I've just set my cell phone in my passenger seat, trying my best to limit any use of it throughout the day. And I lean over, and this is about halfway through my hour and a half trip there, and I see this number that's calling. Now, this is an individual that I knew as an acquaintance, and they've told me on numerous occasions that sometime they would like to get the chance to talk to me, to tell me about everything that I'm doing wrong in life. And they had a list somewhere between 7 and 10 things that they wanted to talk to me about that I need to fix. Now, as much as I would love to have that conversation, I've got to save my cell phone battery. I'm not going to use it for that. I'm not going to give up the little bit of cell phone life that I'm clinging to have that conversation. So then a few miles down the road, I look over and there's another number calling. And I see this person's name come across my cell phone, and I had saw this person out in public somewhere, and they told me that sometime they wanted to call and pretty much tell me how they have heard that one of my children is just the most angelic presence here on planet Earth, how he can pretty much walk on water, and he is indeed the perfect child. And this is my son who has some special needs, and I was very, very excited to have this conversation. So I, of course, answered that call and had this fairly long conversation, and my cell phone battery was running down the whole time, but you know what? It was worth every single bit of it. And we would have went for broke. If we would have needed to go for broke to finish up that conversation, we would have done it. It was worth every single bit of it. It reminded me that my prayers are heard and answered. It was very, very life-giving. It was very, very affirming that my son is going to be okay. I just felt so wonderful after that conversation. But after I hung up the phone and I thought about that call that I had ignored, in that moment I had this little conversation with God in that moment. And he essentially said to me, Nathan, do you feel like your cell phone battery is worth more to you than the day that I have given you? And I kind of thought, well, of course not, God. Why in the world? Who would say that their cell phone battery is worth more than the life that they have? Well, then, Nathan, why was it that you ignored that first call because you wanted to preserve your cell phone battery? But any other day, you would have wasted minutes that I have given you in this day having this conversation that you know is just going to drag you down. I've given you 24 hours today, and you can use that however you want. Do you value your cell phone battery more than that? Do you really, really think that it's worth it to waste minutes having that conversation and the hours later staying in your head, dwelling on all these negative things that drain you of life and drain you of joy and drain you of peace and drain you of your time? If it's not worth your cell phone battery going down, then why is it worth spending any of the time that I have given you in this day? And in that moment, Psalm 118 popped into my head, a very, very famous psalm. It just simply says, this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And I think I kind of had a paradigm shift within that moment. And I realized that God has indeed given me 24 hours. And I can spend that doing anything I want. If I want to dwell on the negative, I can. And if I want to allow people to drag me down, I can. Or I have the choice to rejoice and be glad in it and think about the overflow of blessings that He has given to me.
My cup will overflow from your mercy that is falling, and my cup it overflows from your grace that's never stopping.
After the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the president at the time, George W. Bush, had a famous soundbite that's still referenced sometimes. And he said, "We will not negotiate with terrorists." And the background there, the mindset there, the whatever justification there, if you want to use that word, is that once you begin a negotiation, you have now established the precedent that you are willing to give something up. No matter how small it is that they might ask for something, you have established that you are willing to give something up to them. I've come to believe that within our midst we have time terrorists and joy terrorists. And the problem is that they always want to negotiate with me. They always want to negotiate with us. They always want us to give up a little bit of our time for them to bring us down. They always want us to give up a little bit of our joy for them to bring us down. And once we've established that we will do that, and once we establish that that is a possibility, guess what? There is no quenching their hunger for the amount of time and joy and peace that they get to take away from us. And so I've had to develop this mindset and to develop this attitude that I will not negotiate with time terrorists. I will not negotiate with joy terrorists. I will not negotiate with peace terrorists, because you've come to rob me of my 24 hours that God has given me. I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it. You've come to rob me of the joy that God has given me. He's given me this day, and I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it. You've come to rob me of my peace, and you're not going to get a single bit of it, because I know and acknowledge that there's going to be no quenching that thirst for you. That once I give you a little bit of my peace, once I give you a little bit of my joy, once I give you a little bit of my time, that you're just going to want more and more and more. And I will not negotiate with time, joy, or peace terrorists, because this is the day the Lord has made, and I'm going to choose to rejoice and be glad in it. And I'm not going to be brought down by the abundance of things that could bring me down, but instead I'm going to think about the abundance of blessings that He has given unto me.
And my cup it overflows from your mercy that is falling, and my cup it overflows from your grace that's never stopping.
You know, sometimes circles of faith, church circles, church communities, or whatever, can sometimes be some of the worst places to find the time terrorists and the joy terrorists and the peace terrorists and the people who want to rob you of those things. And it almost seems ironic from an outsider's perspective, but if you have spent much time in those circles and in those communities, you know exactly what I mean. That there are individuals who will sometimes find the smallest little things to find a reason to rob you of your time, to rob you of your joy, to rob you of your peace. And you know, I used to do the sound system at a particular church, and sometimes folks would come up to me, well, I cannot believe that the microphones are that loud for that song. I just cannot believe that's the case. I used to lead worship somewhere. I cannot believe that you all sang that song. I've told you 3 different times I don't like the song. I don't like it. How could you not sing the songs that I want to sing? You know what I think I want to tell those people from now on is, listen, You didn't like the song, I hate that for you. You can spend the next 24 hours thinking about how much you despise the song that we sang today. Or you can rejoice and be glad in it. That choice is up to you, because God's given you this 24 hours, and you can use it however you want. If you want to be mad about a song, you can be mad about a song. I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it, and I invite you to join me. And sometimes we would even have things like church dinners, and I always felt so bad for the people who were preparing the church dinner, because someone is going to say something to complain about something, because I'll tell you, those time and joy and peace terrorists, they're coming for you. They'll find a reason to attack. They will. And I've heard just some of the silliest things. You know, my great-grandmother left her recipe for this casserole to this church on her deathbed. We rolled it up in a scroll. We put it in the bricks that built this church, and you go and use another recipe. You can be mad about the recipe that was used for that casserole, if that's really what you want to do. If that's how you want to spend the 24 hours that God has given you, as being mad about the recipe that was used, you can do that. But I'm going to rejoice and be glad in these 24 hours, and I'm not going to negotiate anymore. Well, what about the books that this one group is using? This one group in the church, they're using this Sunday school material that I have not even approved of. Are you in that class? No. You have a kid in that class? No. Well, why do you care? Well, because no one asked me from you. You can be mad about what some group is doing. You can get upset that they're using a book that was not submitted to you for your approval. Or you can rejoice and be glad in the 24 hours that God's given you. As for me, what I'm going to do, I'm going to think about the abundance and the overflow of blessings that He has given to me.
Cup it overflows from your mercy that is falling, and my cup it overflows.
Now this, of course, doesn't mean to say we will not negotiate with joy terrorists, with the time terrorists, or the peace terrorists. None of that means that we turn a blind eye to legitimate problems and people who are hurting. In fact, it's really all the more reason to not let petty things rob us of our joy and our time and our peace, because there are individuals who truly are encountering a struggle that need us there for them, instead of wasting those precious minutes that God has given us dwelling in things that really don't matter. Could you imagine someone who has shown up at a church for a worship service, and they are sitting in the car and they are trying to compose themselves, and they've had a hard week? Maybe they've lost someone that they love. Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe they've lost their home to a fire. All sorts of different tragedies that they could have faced that way. But here they've brought themselves here, and they're trying to get their tears to finally dry up so they can walk in, and they think, finally I have made it to the place of love, and I have made it to the place of joy, and I have made it to the place of peace, and here I am. It took all the strength that I have, but I've made it. Then they walk in the door, and who do they find but the joy terrorist standing there waiting on them? Can you believe the songs that they're singing this week? I absolutely cannot believe it. Can you believe this preacher? He's telling stories about his kids again. I swear to you, next time I'm walking out. Can you believe that they're doing this? And it just drags down this person who has come with a legitimate struggle. What we have to tell those time, joy, and peace terrorists is, listen, you've got 24 hours today, and that's it. You can use that time being upset and trying to drag people down about petty things that you might not like, or you can rejoice and be glad in it, and instead focus on the abundance and the overflow of blessings that God has given you.
And my cup it overflows from your mercy falling, and my cup it overflows from your grace that's never stopping.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking is, Nathan, this cell phone thing is still bothering me. You said that, your cell phone battery would not last on an hour and a half trip. Well, I have an idea, Nathan. Why don't you get a charger? Why don't you get a charger for your cell phone and charge it up while you're on the road? Well, oddly enough, I do have one in my truck, but something is wrong with it. Whenever I plug my cell phone into it, not only does it not charge my phone, but it actually drains the battery down even more. I have no idea why or how that is the case, but it does. You know, sometimes I'm afraid that circles of faith and church communities are a place where people come to find their joy and to find their peace. But once they get plugged in, not only are we not providing them with that joy and that peace, but we're actually depleting them of it. What we need to do is change our paradigm to where the petty things that really don't matter, we don't spend our 24 hours, we don't lose our charge worrying about those things. There's plenty of things in this world that are worthy of our time and our attention. But typically it's the petty things that are not worthy of our time and our attention that we spend them on. Instead, let's not negotiate with the joy terrorist. Let's not negotiate with the peace terrorist. And let's not negotiate with the time terrorists who are out there trying to take all of those things away from us. Instead, let's focus on mending the broken and rejoicing and being glad in the day that God has given us. And after all, He has given us, in fact, an abundance and an overflow of blessing.